people doing visual arts, people doing literature, it's people doing film.
You know, Michael Moore making that movie against Bush is really punk.
What is punk? 3 chords, fast, loud, simple, a form of music that anyone can make? This genre was born and bred from local New York City clubs, such as CBGB's and Maxwell's, in the late 70s. However, punk is so much more than just 3 chords, and most early bands in the genre weren't simply loud and fast. The reality is that punk is more than just music too. It is a culture, a form of art that spans beyond music, things such as album covers, posters, flyers, clothing, and even tattoos. What is punk art? Art is often an abstract term to put on something. It usually signifies some sort of higher beauty or meaning. How can such a simple form of music be art? The reality is, for many punk musicians at the time, was that their form of music was a reactionary form of art, a response to complicated, money-invested prog rock of their predecessors. Think Deep Purple. And the art that came along with the music was more than just simple posters and album covers. They were calls to the masses, instruments that connected like-minded individuals together against a plethora of causes, whether those causes be politically related or simply motivated by teenage angst. Album covers were often the most common form of art that came out of the punk scene, outside of music, of course. Sure, there were many bands that seemed to be uninterested in the media, bands that simply put pictures of themselves as album covers. But often even these simple covers were meant to be more than just that. They were supposed to create an aesthetic, an image for the band. Look at classically known album covers. Leather jackets, black glasses, skinny jeans, casual poses. It was more than just a cover to show off the music underneath. It was an image, a style. There were many bands that fall in this form. Television, Buzzcocks, even early Clash albums. Heck, even modern punk and post-punk bands have similar covers. There were bands that went the other direction as well, however. These bands aimed for more abstract covers, bands such as Wire, Joy Division, even non-punk bands such as the Smiths. For bands such as these, album covers were part of the whole package. They were an art form that served as an extension of music within the vinyl.
Art, creativity, music, noise, flyers, posters, t-shirts, tattoos, 4 bars, Black Flag.
The most famous of these artistic collaborations amongst punk bands had to do with Black Flag. The LA band's logo and all subsequent album covers, posters, and flyers were designed by Raymond Pettibon. Pettibon's work was well known for being comic book inspired, violent, and often anti-authoritarian. He even went on to become a mainstay in the contemporary art scene after the split of the band. Other influential artists in the punk visual scene included people such as John Holmstrom, the creator of Punk magazine, and Alan Vega, a sculptor who was influenced by the scene. Many of these artists went on to have famous exhibitions after the fall of the first wave of punk. However, album covers always remained the most important mainstay in punk art. Punk art was unique in its adherence to shock value and ugliness. As famous punk artist Mark Fallon said, the whole look of punk was determined to disturb and disrupt the happy complacency of the wider society. This disruption was used to inspire change as well as grab attention. For consumers, these album covers weren't just part of the vinyl they owned. Instead, they represented cheap and widely available pieces of art. Despite the criticisms that many bands had of capitalism, it was this economic system that allowed for the physical distribution of art to the masses. Unfortunately, while punk remains a genre that espouses physical distribution of music, most modern music simply focuses on the virtual forms of music, which restrict the consumers from having cheap physical pieces of art available to them. Despite all this, art remains a common part of punk culture and a significant part of album covers among punk bands. Despite all the emphasis that is put on music in the punk scene, the reality is that punk and art are intertwined.